everyone, good day. We are the group 7 and we will be discussing to you the chapter 9. It is all about organizational attitudes and behaviors. And I am Hazel Batong Hinog and I'll be discussing to you the first topic found in the chapter 9, employee motivation. So employee motivation, we all know that an employee is someone who gets paid to work for a person or a company. And once the company or an organization has selected and trained their employees, it is important that the employees have both motivated and satisfied with their jobs. So industrial psychologists define motivation as the internal force that drives a worker as well as the external factors that encourage the action. So when we say the internal force, it is the driving force behind our thoughts and choices regarding on your career or other activities, and it is centered on your personal desire and needs. And usually it is called internal motivation or intrinsic motivation. It is an internal force like personal growth or a desire to succeed, fuel your drive to complete a task. So the external factors, or sometimes it is called external motivation or extrinsic motivation, it is the motivation comes outside to motivate people. So being paid to do a job is an example of extrinsic motivation, and in this, rewards or other incentives like fame, money, or praise are used as motivation. For example, if you have a job and you're working to complete a project, you might extrinsically motivated to finish it to earn a raise. And you might be internally or intrinsically motivated to finish it because you enjoy the project and want to do a good job. And sometimes this internal and external motivation can work together to help you to complete a task. Is an employee predisposed to being motivated? Psychologists have postulated that some employees are more predisposed to being motivated than are others. That is, some employees come to most jobs with a tendency to be motivated, whereas others come with a tendency to be unmotivated. Researchers have found 3 individual different traits that are most related to work motivation. These are self-esteem, an intrinsic motivation tendency, and the need for achievement. Self-esteem. Self-esteem is the extent to which a person views himself as a valuable and worthy. Or it is a positive or a high self-esteem, or negative, the low self-esteem feelings that we have about ourselves. According to Corman's consistency theory, there is a positive correlation between self-esteem and performance. Corman theorized that employees high in self-esteem are more motivated and will perform better than employees low in self-esteem. That is, employees who feel good about themselves are more motivated to perform better at work than employees who do not feel that they were valuable and worthy people. Consistency theory takes the relationship between self-esteem and motivation one step further by stating that employees with high self-esteem actually desire to perform at high levels, and employees with low self-esteem desire to perform at low levels. In other words, employees try to perform at levels consistent with their self-esteem level. This desire to perform at level consistent with self-esteem is compounded by the fact that employees with low self-esteem tend to underestimate their actual ability and performance. Thus, low in self-esteem employees will desire to perform at lower levels than their actual abilities would allow. There are 3 types of self-esteem: the chronic self-esteem, the situational self-esteem, and the socially influenced self-esteem. So the chronic self-esteem is a person's overall feeling about himself. Or from the word chronic, it is the negative feelings about self or capabilities. Situational self-esteem is also called self-efficacy. It is a person's feeling about himself in a particular situation, such as operating a machine or talking to other people. So, self-efficacy refers to your belief, to your own ability to control your motivation and behavior. For example, a computer programmer might believe that he is a terrible person, that nobody likes him. So, this is an example of a chronic or a low chronic self-esteem. And but he feels that he can program a computer better than anyone else. So this is an example of a situational or a high situational self-esteem because the computer programmer believed his ability that he can operate or program the computer. And socially influenced self-esteem is how a person feel about himself on the basis of the expectations of others. For example, when an employee is aware of others' expectations and matches his own with them, he will perform in a manner that is consistent with those expectations. Self-esteem workshops. Employees might attend workshops that provide them insights into their strengths to boost their self-esteem. These insights are supposed to boost employees' self-esteem by demonstrating that they have multiple strengths and are nice individuals. For example, in a self-esteem training program called The Enchanted Self, employees try to increase their self-esteem by learning how to think positively, discovering their positive qualities that may have gone unnoticed, and sharing their positive qualities with others. Next is experience with success. In this approach, an employee is given a task so easy that he will almost certainly succeed. It is thought that this success increases self-esteem, which should increase performance, which further increases self-esteem, which further increases performance, and so on. So basically, this is based on the principle of self-fulfilling prophecy, which states that an individual will perform as well as or as poorly as he expects to perform. So if an employee believes that he will fail or he will always fail, the only way to break the vicious cycle is to ensure that he performs well on a task. This relationship between self-expectations and performance is called the Galatea effect. So the Galatea effect is a phenomenon where people's own opinions about their ability and self-worth influence their performance. For example, if an employee thinks that he can perform well, chances are he will do well. If in that situation he receives positive encouragement from his superiors, it will only boost his confidence and will do wonders to his performance. Next is supervisor behavior. Another approach to increasing employees' self-esteem is to train supervisors to communicate a feeling of confidence in an employee. The idea here is that if an employee feels that a manager has a confidence in him, his self-esteem will increase as well as his performance. This process is known as Pygmalion effect. It refers to the phenomenon in which the higher the expectation placed on people, the better is their execution of work. Meaning, the way the manager treats their subordinates influences their performance. If a negative feedback is passed on to them, their performance may actually falter. This is known as the Golem effect. It occurs when a negative expectations of an individual cause a decrease in that individual's actual performance. The lower expectation placed upon on individuals, either by supervisors or the individual themselves, lead to poorer performance by the individuals. The Pygmalion and the Golem effect can be explained by the idea that our expectations of others' performance can lead us to treat them differently. That is, if we think someone will do a poor job, we will probably treat that person in a ways that bring out that result. If a supervisor thinks that an employee is intrinsically motivated, he will treat the employee in a less controlling way. The result in this treatment is that the employee actually becomes more intrinsically motivated. Thus, when an employee becomes aware of others' expectations and matches his own with them, he will perform in a manner that is consistent with those expectations. Next is intrinsic motivation. When people are intrinsically motivated, they will seek to perform well because they either enjoy performing the actual task or enjoy the challenge of successfully completing the task. People who are intrinsically motivated don't need external rewards such as pay or praise. In fact, being paid for something they enjoy may reduce their satisfaction and intrinsic motivation. When people are extrinsically motivated, they don't need particularly to enjoy the task but are motivated to perform well to receive some type of reward or to avoid negative consequences. Next is needs for achievement and power. A theory developed by McClelland suggests that employees differ in the extent to which they are motivated by the need for achievement, affiliation, and power. So, employees who have strong need of achievement are motivated by jobs that are challenging and over which they have some control, whereas employees who have minimal achievement needs more satisfied when jobs involve little challenge and have a high probability of success. The need for achievement is the urge to achieve something in what you do. It is the need that drives a person to work and even struggle for the objectives that he wants to achieve. People who possess high achievement needs are people who always work to excel by particularly avoiding low reward, low risk situations and difficult to achieve high risk situations. Next is in contrast, employees who have strong need of affiliation are motivated by jobs in which they can work with and help other people. The need for affiliation is the urge of a people to have interpersonal and social relationships with others or a particular set of people. They seek to work in groups by creating friendly and lasting relationships and has urge to be liked by others. They tend to like collaborating with others to competing with them and usually avoid high risk situations and uncertainty. The individuals motivated by the need for affiliation prefer being part of a group. They like spending their time socializing and maintaining relationships and possess a strong desire to be loved and accepted. These individuals stick to basics and play by the books without a feeling a need to change things, primarily due to fear of being rejected. And finally, employees who have strong need for power are motivated by a desire to influence others rather than simply to be successful. The need for power is the desire within a person to hold control and authority over another person and influence and change the decision in accordance with his own needs or desire. The need to enhance their self-esteem and reputation drives these people and they desire interviews and ideas to be accepted and implemented over the views and ideas over others. That's all about my topic and thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, this is Mira Kalapan Agalot and today I shall be discussing to you some of the subtopics found in Chapter 9, Employee Motivation. So we have a question here. Have the employees' values and wants been met? Well, our work motivation and work satisfaction are determined by the discrepancy between what we want, value, and expect what the job actually provides. So when we say work motivation, this refers to our willingness, to our desire and to our drive to work properly and to perform our tasks, duties, or responsibilities effectively. While for work satisfaction, this refers to how content an employee is, how happy and approved he is with the things that he is receiving and experiencing in the work environment. And moving on to the term discrepancy, when we say discrepancy, this refers to the lack of compatibility or the difference or the mismatch between two things. So this phrase basically tells us that we would only know how if we are motivated or unmotivated or satisfied or unsatisfied if we would be able to see or spot the difference or the discrepancy between our job expectations, wants, and values and the reality of the job that we have. And so for everyone to have a better understanding on the concept on the discrepancy between our job expectations or needs and wants and the reality of the job, I would like to encourage everyone to try to ponder. So as you can see on the presentation, there are two pictures. So in the first picture, you can see that there is a puzzle there. And that puzzle symbolizes or represents the employee's life. And as we all know, our lives are composed of different aspects. And those puzzle pieces that compose the entire puzzle represent our aspects or life aspects. And you can also see that there is a hollow space there which is intended for a yellow puzzle piece. And that hollow space there symbolizes or represents the employee's wants, expectations, and values. And that could refer to his want for flexibility, the need for high salary, and the value for honesty. However, instead of a yellow puzzle piece, a red puzzle piece is trying to occupy the hollow space there. And that red puzzle piece represents or symbolizes the reality of the job, which is that the reality of the job is that it is not flexible at all, and that it does not pay well, and of course it does not value honesty, because in that workplace corruption is very rampant. And furthermore, you can also see that the shape of the red puzzle piece does not coincide with the hollow space which is intended for the yellow puzzle piece. So that alone, that means that there is a discrepancy between the two. So that's a discrepancy. And moving on to the next picture, or to the second picture, you can see that the space there is still not yet occupied. And that, what do you call that? That person sitting on top of the puzzle symbolizes the employee. So as you can see, the person sitting there is somewhat frustrated, unmotivated, and unsatisfied, because there was a discrepancy between his job expectations and the reality of the job that he has. And as a result, his life became dull. So that's it. I hope you have understood the concept on the discrepancy between the job expectations, values, needs, and wants, and the reality of the job. So moving on, we have here job expectations. So if there is a discrepancy between the employee's job expectations and the reality of their jobs, then their motivation to work and satisfaction will be affected. So just like what I've said before. Additionally, employees will compare what the organization promised to do to them with what the organization really does. So if that happens, employees will also perform less, and it will just signify that they are really unmotivated and unsatisfied. So for example, a recruiter tells an applicant how much fun employees have at a particular company and about unlimited potential for advancement. After 3 months on the job, however, the employees has yet to experience the fun and can find any signs of potential advancement opportunities. Because these expectations have not been met, the employee will probably feel unmotivated. So you can see on the picture that the employees are really unmotivated and unsatisfied, and they are not just having headaches, they are really unmotivated. So, however, employees being unmotivated and unsatisfied can be prevented if employers and companies would use the technique called Realistic Job Preview, or RJP. So RJP, or Realistic Job Preview, is a technique that presents job applicants with a realistic view of what they should expect from the organization. Thus, an organization must provide job applicants with all pertinent information without distortion. So when we say all pertinent information without distortion, these includes all the positive information and the negative information, or the cons of working in that company. So RJPs were created as an alternative to the seduction method of recruiting job candidates. So of course, if a company wants to grow further, to expand, that company should hire more manpower, and that company should need enough workforce. And with that, some companies would use the seduction method, wherein they would entice the job applicants of all the positive benefits or all the positive things that they will be receiving once they will be hired in that company. But in reality, it is totally opposite, since the job expectations or the job promises that the employers or the company had promised to their job applicants were not met or were not fulfilled. So realistic job previews were created to replace or to serve as an alternative to that seduction method. Further, since RJPs do not sugarcoat information, two simultaneous organizational goals are accomplished. First, job candidates can self-select out of a job offer that is not a good match for them because of a given accurate information. And second, organizations will have a more stable and satisfied workforce. So, we're done with the job expectations, and now we shall move on to job characteristics. So according to job characteristics theory, which was formulated by Richard Hackman and Greg Oldham, employees desire jobs that are meaningful, provide them with opportunity to be personally responsible for the outcome of their work or autonomy, and provide them with feedback of the results of their efforts. So in this theory, jobs will have motivation potential if they allow employees to use a variety of skills to connect their efforts to an outcome or task identification which has meaning, is useful, or is appreciated by co-workers as well by others in the society or task significance. So we have a sample scenario here, so let's read the sample scenario. A job in which a factory worker stitches the company logo on shirts that were created by other workers, and in which the quality of the shirts and the logo stitching are evaluated by employees in a quality control department. Because the job does not involve a variety of skills or lacks skill variety, someone else checks the quality of their work, no feedback, or low task identification. Putting logos on a shirt is probably not appreciated by society, or low task significance, and the employee is closely supervised, or low autonomy. Thus, the job would be considered to have low motivation potential. So in relation to the sample scenario, so in a factory there are a lot of workers, and those workers are divided or designated into the different areas or different departments in the factory. And a factory worker whose job is to stitch logos on the shirts can never have variety of skills because checking its quality is already beyond the scope of his job. And the quality control are the ones that are being assigned to check the quality. And with that, there is no feedback that's being given individually, because whenever the quality control department would see any defect or damage, they would just disregard it. And if ever they would be giving feedbacks would be addressed to the general population. So there's low task identification. And also, putting logos on shirt is probably not appreciated by society, because we have this mindset that when we hear the word factory, it comes to our mind that the products in a factory are being processed by machines. However, we tend to overlook the fact that there are also factories that are utilizing manpower or people to manually process the products. So that's the hard truth of the job of a factory worker, having low motivation potential. And moving on, we're done with the job characteristics, and now we shall move on to the needs, values, and wants. So discrepancy between an employee's needs, values, and wants and what a job offers can also lead to low levels of motivation and satisfaction. 3 theories focus on employees' needs, values. So there are 3 theories that are focusing on the employees' needs and values, and these are the following: Maslow's needs hierarchy, ERG theory, and two-factor theory. So as you can see on the screen, there is a table there, table 9.2. This is a comparison of the Maslow, ERG, and Herzberg theories. So under the Maslow theory, there are the 5 major needs that one or an employee should meet. Starting with the basic level, which is the physical, safety, social, ego, and self-actualization. In the ERG, we have here the existence, relatedness, and growth. And lastly, for Herzberg theory, we have here hygiene factors and motivators. So in the Maslow's needs hierarchy theory, again, there are 5 major types of needs under the Maslow's needs hierarchy theory. So the first one is the basic biological needs. So basic biological needs, these pertains to our basic needs like food, shelter, clothing, electricity, and our other basic needs. So in order for us to meet these needs, we need to work. However, time will come that even if these needs are being met, even if we can eat 3 times a day, we have different clothing, we have a house to live in, even if these needs are being met, time will come that we will still feel unmotivated and unsatisfied because there are still other needs that we need to meet. And that leads us to the next major type of need, which is the safety needs, or which are the safety needs. Safety needs are very important needs that an employee should meet in order for him or her to feel motivated or to feel satisfied. Because even if, for example, you are working in a coal mine, and we are all aware that working in a coal mine is dangerous. So even if you can feed your family 3 times a day, you can give them shelter, you can give them clothing, but the fact that your life is at risk and anytime anything bad can happen to you, so that makes you feel that this job would not make me feel safe at all, and as a result you would not feel motivated to work and you would be unsatisfied because your safety is at risk. And it is very important that an employee is safe in his workplace or in her workplace. And later on, safety needs have been expanded into psychological safety and physical safety. So when we say psychological safety, this refers to job security. So a job that is secure can also make us feel safe. Because imagine if you are working, if you are if you have permanent job, and if you have permanent job, then it will somehow ease the anxiety being caused by financial problems, because you're aware that every month you would be getting salary, and that makes us feel safe. That makes an employee feel safe from being terminated. And after the safety needs, the other type of needs that an employee should meet in order for him to feel satisfied and motivated are the social needs. So when I say social needs, these are the needs pertaining to our need to socialize with other people, to communicate with other people, to interact with other people, and to relate with other people. And by meeting these needs, we can feel motivated and satisfied in the work environment. And and also when when employees' social needs are being met, they would feel that they are loved, that they are special, and that they are being valued. And also, and that companies or employers can help their employees meet these social needs by allowing them or letting them to chit chat or to socialize with their coworkers in the cafeterias or in the lounge, and also by holding parties or by having um, sports fest in whenever there would be an event in a company, or family picnics of the family members of the employees. So that's the social needs. Next one is the ego, or the ego needs. So when we say ego needs, these pertains to our need to be recognized and our need to be successful. So these ego needs can be fulfilled or can be met by recognizing or by appreciating the efforts and hard works of employees. And when and of course if we are if we are being recognized or being appreciated, we would also feel motivated and satisfied, because that signifies that our hard works and efforts are being valued. And the last type of need, and probably the most important type of need that employees should strive to meet, are the self-actualization needs. So self-actualization needs revolve on the concept of be all that you can be. Because for someone who strives to become the better version of himself or herself, meeting the four other types of needs is just enough. Because a person who wants to achieve or wants to have self-actualization needs would really do her best or his best to reach his potential in every task. And also, meeting these self-actualization needs is easy, especially for those people like policemen, teachers, militaries, and seamen, because they can be promoted, especially if they do their best in their job, and especially if they exert so much effort in their job. However, meeting self-actualization needs is hard for those people whose jobs are just constant. 24/7 they are welding, they are selling street foods, so it is hard for them to meet these self-actualization needs. And however, even though most companies that we know today utilize the Maslow's needs hierarchy theory, there were still technical problems that were seen in that theory, and that will lead us to the evaluation of Maslow's theory. So although Maslow's needs theory makes good intuitive sense and has always been popular with managers and marketing analysts, it lost popularity with academicians in the 1970s before making a resurgence in the new millennium. So there were three technical problems that were seen in that theory. And the first one is that the first concern was that Maslow's 5 levels may be too many, and that there are actually only 2 or 3 levels. So the second one, some people do not progress up the hierarchy as Maslow suggests they do. That is, most people move up move up from the basic biological needs level to safety needs to social needs and so on. So the second tactical problem tells us that uh, the Maslow's needs hierarchy theory does not happen all the time, because especially in the case of policemen and militaries, because they can never be they can never their safety needs can never be satisfied. Can never be satisfied or can be fulfilled because their safety is not guaranteed due to the nature of their jobs. And uh, they can, well, even if they can never be satisfied, their safety needs can never be satisfied, but they can skip that level. They can be their ego needs can be satisfied due to rewards and recognitions, and they can also achieve the self-actualization needs because they can also be promoted and they handle different situations and different people. So in that sense, they can really reach their potential in every task that they do. And the last tactical problem is that the theory predicts that once the needs at one level are satisfied, the next needs level should become the most important. So those were the three technical problems that were seen in the Maslow's needs hierarchy theory. So next up, even though Maslow's theory has not been supported by research, it may still be useful. Of course, some of the theory's specific assertions may not be true, but it still provides guidelines that organizations can follow to increase motivation and satisfaction. So providing recognition, enrichment, and a safe workplace does increase employee motivation. The validity of this recommendation is probably why Maslow's theory still is widely used by human resources professionals, even though it is not popular with academicians and researchers who prefer more complicated models. So we have here a situation which applies which some of the principles of Maslow's in his needs hierarchy theory can be applied. So let's read first the situation. So a situation at a major university provides an example of how Maslow's general principles can be used. After years of increasing enrollment and prestige, a scandal at the university caused a rapid decline in enrollment, financial backing, and staff morale. To fix these problems, a new president was hired. His first acts were to announce a Spirit Day each Friday, on which employees could dress casually, and increase emphasis on diversity issues, and his intention to start a new sports team. Employee satisfaction and motivation continued to drop. Faculty left in great numbers, and millions of dollars were cut from the budget. What went wrong? Among many things, the president's proposal were aimed at Maslow's level 3 and above, whereas employees' needs were at level 2. That is, will this university survive? And will I still have a job next year? So, as you can see in the situation, skipping those two basic levels is really hard, especially in an organization, and especially in the case of the sample situation, because the new president his first acts were to announce a Spirit Day, and if you can recall, the root of the problem, or the root of the negative happenings that happened in that university was a scandal. So allowing the students to wear whatever they want to, or allowing them to do whatever they want to do would make the situation even worse, because who knows what the students will do, who knows what the students will will wear. And we can never escape the fact that even if you are dressed in a conservative way, there are still other people who would lust over you. So that's basically a wrong move. That's basically the wrong move of the president to have a Spirit Day. So moving on to the next slide. So as you can see, there are 5 pictures on your screen, and these pictures are just proof that most of the companies that we know today are really applying Abraham Maslow's principles, especially his principles on his needs hierarchy theory. So in the first picture, you can see that this is Nescafe's way of recognizing their employees. So in this picture, you can see that the ego needs are being met. In the second picture, are the company or our Deli Bread really values their employees because they have set an exclusive date for their employees to be vaccinated. The third picture, as you can, if it is not clear to you, I will just read. It is during the Altura Small Christmas party in 2019. So in this, the social needs of employees are being met, and also in the last two pictures, the fourth picture is the venue of a Christmas party, and the fifth picture shows the happy faces of employees under USSC. So there's my sister there. They went to Manila in the year 2008 to have their Christmas party. So USSC really values the social needs of their employees because they were having the Christmas party outside Bohol, and according to my sister, they were really having fun that night and they really enjoyed it, and they're also thankful to the company. Moving on, there is another theory, which is the ERG theory, which was formulated by Clayton Alderfer. So in ERG theory, there are only three major types of needs, and these are the existence needs, relatedness needs, and growth needs. So unlike the Maslow's needs hierarchy theory, there were five, and here there are only three. And the first two type of needs are being generalized into existence needs. The third and the fourth type of needs are being generalized into relatedness needs, while the fourth and the fifth type of needs are generalized into growth needs. So aside from the number of type of needs, the major difference between Maslow's theory and ERG theory is that Alderfer suggested that a person can skip levels. By allowing for such movement, Alderfer has removed one of the biggest problems with Maslow's theory. So in his theory, he states that a person can skip levels, and Maslow's principles can never be applied all the time due to the nature of the employee's job. So for example, if let's just use the previous example that I used previously a while ago. So in the case of those policemen and military, so their safety needs are not really guaranteed. So even if their safety needs can never be satisfied, because their safety is their life is at risk, they can still skip that level, and they can still achieve, or they can still have the ego needs and the self-actualization needs. So Alderfer's theory explains why a higher level need sometimes does not become more important once a lower level need has been satisfied. Alderfer believes that for jobs in many organizations, advancement to the next level is not possible because of such factors as company policy or nature of the job. So thus the path to the next level is blocked, and the employee becomes frustrated and places more importance on the previous level. Perhaps that is why some unions demand more money and benefits for their members rather than job enrichment. And the last theory, which details the job, the needs, the values of the employees, is Frederick Herzberg's two-factor theory. So Herzberg, 1966, believed that job-related factors could be divided into two categories: hygiene factors and motivators. Thus, the name of the theory is two-factor theory. So when we say hygiene factors, these are the elements that that are not related. That are related with the job, but does not involve the job itself. So the hygiene factors that Frederick Herzberg's identified are pay, security, coworkers, working conditions, company policy, work schedules, and supervisors. So why can we say that pay is not is a hygiene factor? It is because pay is the result of your job, and it does not involve the job itself. So it is the result of your of the effort that you have exerted in your job. And on the other hand, there are motivators. So motivators are the elements that are job related, related with your job, and also includes the job itself. So these motivators are growth, challenge, responsibility, stimulation, variety, independence, achievement, control, and interesting work. So if if your goal is to become a better person, if your goal is to have personal growth, that becomes your motivation to work well, to perform your tasks and duties effectively. And also, if you are interested in your work, then you will be more motivated and satisfied with your work. So that's why these elements are called motivators, because these include the work itself. And Herzberg believes that hygiene factors are necessary but not sufficient for job satisfaction and motivation. That is, if a hygiene factor is not present at an adequate level, example, the pay is too low, the employee will be dissatisfied and less motivated. But if all hygiene factors are represented adequately, the employee's level of satisfaction and motivation will only be neutral. Only the presence of both motivators and hygiene factors can bring job satisfaction and motivation. So in Herzberg theory, he clarifies that you can never be motivated or you can never be satisfied if only the hygiene factors are present and the motivators are absent. So both the hygiene factors and motivators must be present. They go hand in hand in order for an employee to really feel motivated and satisfied. So that's all for my report, and I hope you have learned something. And thank you so much for watching and listening. Bye.
Hi, I am Marveline Piquero and I am the third reporter. Today, I am going to continue reporting the topic found in Chapter 9. To increase motivation, goal setting should be used. So goal setting is the process of determining specific levels of performance for individuals to achieve. So meaning, ang goal setting mao ang process of identifying something na gusto nimo ma-accomplish and establishing a measurable goals. Without goals, it can be difficult to determine how to get a certain job, promotion, or other milestone you want to achieve. So, when you decide on a financial change to save more money and then set a certain amount to save each month, this is an example of goal setting. Diba, gusto niyo nga mag-save og more money and then nag-set ka og certain amount og pila imong gusto nga ma-save each month. So with goal setting, each employee is given a goal such as increasing attendance, selling more products, or reducing the number of grammar errors in reports. The first goal setting study that caught the interest of industrial psychologists was conducted by Latham and Balds. But the co-developers of goal setting theory is Latham and Locke. They published a theory of goal setting and task performance na formally introducing now as the goal setting theory. Latham and Balds found that truck drivers who were assigned the goal of increasing the weight of their truckloads made modification to their trucks so that they could better estimate truck weight before driving to the weighing station. So, although this is the most significant study, goal setting has been shown to be effective in a wide variety of situations. For goal setting to be most successful, the goals themselves should possess certain qualities represented by the acronym SMART. So we are already familiar about the SMART goals. Mga ang specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So now I am going to discuss what is SMART goals all about. So first, let us know first what is specific. So as specific, properly set goals are concrete and specific. So in order for a goal to be effective, it needs to be specific. A goal such as, I will produce as many as I can, will not be as effective as I will print 5,000 pages in the next hour. The more specific the goal, the greater the productivity. The problem with such a goal, like for example, he will do push-ups as many as he can, means that as many as he did the last time, as many as he can before he begins to sweat. The problem with this goal is its ambiguity and the lack of specific guidelines. Too broad or general ra kayo atong goal, which is kung more specific, highest ang possibility nga ma-achieve because you set a clear and specific guidelines. The more narrow your goal, the more you understand the steps necessary to achieve it. However, though setting specific goals makes sense, it is not always easy to do. So Microsoft found that nearly 25% of the goals set by the employees as part of their performance plans were not specific. So the result of focus groups investigating this lack of specificity found that employees believe that with the constantly changing environment, it was difficult to set specific goals because the goal would need constant adjustment. So, ingon ang taga Microsoft, diha daw 25% sa ilahang goals na deserve sa ilahang employees nga dili specific. They found out that employees believe that with a constantly changing environment, a picky daw or lisod og set a specific goal. So, wala tong gitawag sa saying that the only constant in this world is change. So, bisan pa og ana nakagiset og mga specific goals, so wala magtakabaw sa dagan sa panahon. So, kung magkaset kag specific goals, so in a constant ang environment kay a constantly changing pod. So, ang imuhang goals dapat dili siya permanente because of the constantly changing environment. However, dili reason dili ta sa specific goals tungod sa constantly changing environment. Dili na siya maoy makapush na to not set a specific goals. The second one is measurable. Specificity is a solid part, but it's missing something important, numbers. So goals should be measurable so that there is tangible evidence that proves the goal has been accomplished or completed. So properly set goals are measurable. So in the Microsoft study mentioned in the previous paragraph, diba, only 40% of the goals set by the employees were measurable. So ang pangutana, nga nung importante man nga natay measurable, anong kailangan man immersion nato. So in order for us nga makabaw tang ato ang set na specific goals sa achieve na nato, like kahit og ana sa magama ka og mga activities as a student, ibang mag-set ka og imong goals is to humno nimo ang imong mga activities. So ang imong measure is karong adlaw humno nimo dapat makahuman ka og mga 4 activities sapat mahuman. So, mao tay mo nakaset na kay specific goals as well as na kay measurement kung kanus-ani mo siya kutob humnon. The next one is attainable or achievable. So, setting goals you can reasonably accomplish within a certain time frame will help you motivated and focused. So, properly set goals are high but attainable. So, if an employer regularly prints 5,000 pages an hour and sets a goal of 4,000 pages, performance is certainly not going to increase. So, conversely, if the goal becomes 20,000 pages, it will also not be effective because the employee will quickly realize that he cannot meet the goal and will quit trying. Setting higher goals generally leads to better performance than thus setting lower goals. So the level of goal difficulty will most affect performance when employees are committed to reaching a goal. So example is kanang ang police chief sets a high goal for police officer to write traffic citation. The police officer will not increase the traffic citation unless committed siya sa iyang goal. And if he believes he can accomplish the goal, agrees that the goal is worthwhile and will be rewarded for achieving the goal, his committed to achieve the goal is likely to be high. Interestingly, setting goals that are too difficult to be accomplished can result not only in decreased performance, but in an increase in unethical behavior as well. So, if we are going to set a goal, so atong bana-banaon if that certain goal is attainable kay palahalara ta din later on, dili na to ma-accomplish ato ang goal, it may result nga dili na tamo sabog set into another because of failure. Goals should be realistic, not too high nga imposible na sad kaayo ma-achieve. R for relevant. So, properly set goals are also relevant. So when setting goals for yourself, consider whether or not they are relevant. So setting a goal about increasing public speaking skills will not be as motivating to a person working in a landfill as it would be to a police officer who often testifies in court. So, a landfill is a final control measure of waste disposal. So landfill is not relevant to a public speaking, as the purpose of public speaking is to inform, persuade, and entertain audience. If we say relevant, see to it nga at muhang goal nga gusto buhaton or ma-achieve is na connection, like public speaking, and then lawyer said kalibanay connection because as a lawyer imuha dyan ang work nga to testify sa court, diba? So naa dyan ang public speaking, imuhang goal is to stage fright as a lawyer. So na connection na relevant ang duha. T for the time bound. So good goals don't stretch into infinity. They have a deadline. So the final component of smart goals is that they need to be time bound. Goals work best when there is a time frame for their completion. For example, a goal to clean one's office would be more motivating if the goal included a date by which the office would be cleaned. Through the time frame, aside from motivate ta mo work, makatabang sad ang time frame para ma-aware ta every time. If there is no time frame or a deadline, the goal is unlikely to produce a favorable outcome. So, employee participation. It is a process whereby employees are involved in decision-making processes rather than simply acting an order. So, until fairly recently, it was generally thought that a goal would lead to the greatest increase in productivity if it was set at least in part by the employee. That is, although performance would increase if the supervisor set the employee's goal, it would increase even more if the employee participated. However, several meta-analyses have indicated that participating in goal setting does not increase performance. The second meta-analysis is that employee participation in goal setting increases the commitment to reaching a goal. So, in a company, dili siya matawag nga whole without the employee. Each body of the company has its goal as well as the employee. So, sa atong nadungugan niya na duha ka meta-analysis. The first one is participating in goal setting does not increase performance. The second one is employee participation in goal setting increases the commitment to reaching a goal. But it's up to employee if what's best for her or him. Kay na yung mga uban, diba, nga mas dedicated sila to work if they have a goal setting. However, nasa'y uban nga maybe due to some failures nga ilhang na-encounter, maunang for them, goal setting does not increase performance. But, this is just a meta-analysis. So, dili ta makaingon nga tanan kay sabi lang siya. So, it can be employees participated in goal setting, goal commitment may be higher, or for them, employees participated in goal setting, goal commitment may be lower. To increase the effectiveness of goal setting, feedback should be provided to employees on their progress in reaching the goals. So, in the goal setting theory of motivation by Edwin Locke, he states that specific and challenging goals, along with appropriate feedback, contribute to higher and better task performance. So, mas satisfying man jud sa feeling, diba, to receive some positive feedback, especially gikan sa imong mga superiors. Also, through feedback, makaibaw tawag as tadapit nagkuwang, tadapit need na to improve to be better. Feedback can include verbally telling employees how they are doing, placing a chart on a wall, or using non-verbal communication such as smiles, glares, and pats on the back. Feedback best increases performance when it is a positive and informational rather than negative and controlling. Here are some tips for providing effective feedback. So, identify the employee's behavior and focus on it rather than on the employee's personality. If we say personality, it is taken to be what we are, how we individuals tend to behave, think, and feel. So, like for example, being honest, being adventurous and fearless, being helpful, and many more. So, while behavior is absolutely everything what we do, such being aggressive, confident, and active. So, we need to focus on employees' behavior on the employee's personality, because ang personality sa usa ka tawo cannot be changed while ang behavior can be changed. So, example, if an employee is often late for work, a superior might say, "In the past 2 weeks, you have been late 5 times," rather than, "We are having a problem with your lack of responsibility and commitment to your job." It's a formal way, mga God, to point out his behavior than his personality. Kaya mingon kaog, in the past 2 weeks, you have been late about 5 times. Diba, mas ma-encourage siya to change his behavior, to do better. Second is, explain how their behaviors impacting others. For example, when you arrive to work 10 minutes late, customers become angry because there is no one to help them with their purchases. When other employees cover the register for you, it causes them to get behind on their work, resulting in their missing part of their lunch break or being forced to work overtime. So, when you explain like this, aside from makasabot siya sa imong gustong ipaabot, formal pud siya, diba? Even if naa siya problem sa work, and for you as a supervisor or unsa pa imong rank, you should explain it in a better way to avoid negative manner from the employees in the future. We should explain it that way kaysa moingon ka nga pabaya ka, imbis makapahuway siya dit na lang or maka-off og sayo dili na lang kay kuwang sa tao. Diba, mas makaibo siya kung ikaw as employee nga Mr. Yan o yung ana murag mas na chance nga mas magtanim ka ng galit sa imuhang supervisor. Bis kay imuhang goal is para makasabot siya sa ang iyahang mali. Diba, wala na ang imuhang gustong ipaabot tungod sa imuhang feedback or sa imuhang way nga pag-deliver sa feedback. The third one is, ask the employee for suggestion on how the behavior can be changed. If the employee has none to offer, the supervisor can provide some. The last one is, after arriving at a solution, the supervisor and the employee should then set a specific goal. So for example, they could agree that the employee will be on time every day for the next week. And then, after an agreed upon time, the supervisor and the employee should meet to see if the goal has been met and to set new goals. Self-regulation theory. So it is an interesting extension, and goal setting and feedback is the concept of self-regulation. So in the previous section, we discussed how it is important to get feedback on goal attainment. Though this feedback often comes from others, the idea behind self-regulation theory is that employees monitor their own progress toward attaining goals and then make the necessary adjustment. That is, they self-regulate. So if we say self-regulation, it is the ability to monitor and manage your energy, states, emotions, thoughts, and behaviors in ways that are acceptable and produce positive results. Self-regulation is you set a rule on how you will achieve it, like example. Sa example, makita nato asa siya dapit mo-adjust para ma-achieve iyahang goal and in order for her to gain a positive outcome later on. An essential strategy for motivating employees is to provide an incentive for employees to accomplish the goals set by an organization. So, the basis for these incentive systems are operant conditioning principles, which states that employees will engage in behaviors for which they are rewarded and avoid behaviors for which they are punished. If employees are rewarded for not making errors, they are more likely to produce high-quality work, so positive reinforcer. If employees are rewarded for the amount of work done, they will place less emphasis on quality and try to increase their quantity. So, ang ilahang incentives is pinaagi sa operant conditioning. If we say operant conditioning, it is an association that made between a behavior and a consequence. For negative, money ang punishment, and for the positive behavior, mao ang reward. Diba, ang premise sa operant conditioning is actions that are followed by reinforcement or the positive will be strengthened and more likely to occur again in the future. For example, if you tell a funny story in class and everyone laughs, you will probably be more likely to tell that story again in the future. But finally, if employees are not rewarded for any behavior, they will search for behaviors that will be rewarded. If ikaw as an employee, kalingaw ka o receive incentives or reward, di ba, most likely mas motivated na ka nga mo lihok or mo gama sa imong work. Unless if ang imong work is not enough or for you, it serve as a negative behavior, so mas mangita jud ka og paagi or mas i-pursue pa ni imuhang self to receive a reward or a positive reinforcer. There are 6 factors in determining the effectiveness of incentive programs. So, timing of the incentive, contingency of the consequences, the type of incentive use of individual-based versus group-based incentives, use of positive incentives, rewards versus negative incentives, and the fairness of the reward system. Timing of the incentive. Research indicates that the reinforcer of a punisher is most effective if it occurs soon after a performance of behavior. Unfortunately, if the timing of the incentive is too long, the effectiveness of the incentive to improve performance will be hindered. Example, ikaw as an employee sa usa ka restaurant performs many behaviors in serving a customer. Usahay na dyan fit nga mabilin from the customer after the meal, which you as an employee mo na imong feedback for showing a good performance. However, if ang tip kay gamay, ikaw as usa ka empleyado wala ka kaybaw, asa ka dapit nagkuha sa imuhang service. Likewise, if the tip is large, wala sad kay 100% sure if unsa nga behavior ang giganahan sa customer nimo. The timing of the consequence by itself may not be enough. Though the word incentive is a positive reinforcer, the effectiveness of the incentive to improve his or her performance will be hindered. Contingency of consequences. If it is not possible to immediately reward or punish a behavior, it should at least be made clear that the employee understands the behaviors that brought reward or punishment. Furthermore, when tips are pooled at restaurants so that each employee gets a share of all tips received, an individual employee's rewards are not as contingent on his own behavior as when tips are not pooled. Mas ganahan jud ang employee makadawat og incentives or tip if ang tip direct dayon nimo. Whereas kung tagaan ka og tip as a whole kanang kinikas sa mga empleyado, na mas better or mas satisfying sa feeling ang tip nga imong nadawat serves as a reward sa imong self might be due to being a hardworking employee. The point of this example is that reward and punishment must be made contingent upon performance, and this contingency of consequence must be clear to employees if we want them to be motivated. Contingency means panghitabo nga unpredictable. Duhay value nga pwede ikahatag if you receive a reward or a punishment but then wala ka kahibaw asa nga aspect sa imong behavior ang mean. If the reward or punishment cannot be administered immediately, the employee must be told the purpose of the consequence so that the link between behavior and outcome is clear.
Hello, good day everyone. I am Jessabel Carcasana, and today I will discuss some topics found in Chapter 9, the types of incentives used until the stock options. So now let's start by defining what is an incentive program. So an incentive program is the structured use of rewards and recognition in order to motivate someone, in order to show the best of its performance. So I know that all of us are common with this word. And while we are growing up, we experience this kinds of incentive from our parents. For example, when we do good at school or when we have high scores during exams, our parents give us reward such as foods or money, and they also show recognition by telling us good job or we are very good at our exam. So those are examples of incentives. An interesting method in providing incentives that meets the individual needs of the employees stems from the Premack principle. The Premack principle states that a supervisor can reinforce its employees by using something that on the surface does not appear to be a reinforcer. The best way to explain this is by constructing a reinforcement hierarchy. In this way, the employee will list down all his preferences for a variety of reinforces. So we have here an example from our hypothetical employee. So this is an example of a reinforcement hierarchy from our hypothetical employee. So as we can see, our hypothetical employee most desire money and time off from work, and least desires typesetting and cleaning of press. So we can say that our employee can do better at his job at cleaning his press if we give him money each time he completes the task, but that would be so expensive. Thus, according to the Premack principle, we can get our employee clean his press properly by allowing him to do one of the activities he considered more enjoyable than cleaning his press. So according to the hierarchy, our employee considered throwing oily rags more enjoyable. So all we need to do for our reward is to let him dispose the rug. Maybe because it is more enjoyable for our hypothetical employee because he have a time, or he can take a short break while walking towards the disposal area. So all we need to do is to let our employee do one of the activities he likes more. I can agree with this, and I think that my parents is using the PREMAC principle when I was studying in my elementary years. I remember that I really have hard time in studying math. Rather than telling me to stop studying, my parents make me choose to study English or to study math. So I choose the easier one, the one that I enjoy more than math. So I choose to study English. So in that way, I get my reward. I get to answer the subject that I felt it is easier compared to math. The first incentives that we will discuss is the financial incentive. So a financial incentive or a financial reward is a monetary reward. In addition to their regular compensation, a monetary reward is given to an employee who shows a good performance in work or in an organization. This is aligned with the organizational goals. As an employee that helps an organization achieve its goal, an incentive often follows. So this financial reward is usually extrinsic. Extrinsic motivation is based on tangible reward, such as pay raises, bonuses, and paid time off. Let's take a look at an example. Bailey Jones worked as a salesperson for a new car dealership called Star Motors. The managers at Star Motors have determined that their newest car, the V300, is not selling well. The managers meet with Bailey and the rest of the sales team to announce that they would pay each salesperson an additional $50 for each new V300 he or she sold. This is a perfect example of a financial reward that is extrinsic. Bailey is going to receive an additional $50 for each new V300 he sells, while helping the company meets its sale goals. This is the perfect example of a financial reward because Bailey would be given a monetary reward based on Bailey's performance. If Bailey can sold a car, he can receive a monetary reward of an additional $50. And also, Bailey is helping the company reach its sales goal. Another incentive that we will discuss is the recognition. Rather than giving financial incentive, many organizations rewards employees' behavior through recognition. We have here an example. Most universities award faculty members the titles of associate professor and professor to recognize years of service as well as quality of performance. And another example, United Airlines hold a special ceremony, each emblems for each year of service. So we also heard the term recognition, and I also heard of it in the call center industry. For example, if you wanted to go and apply for a higher position, your performance or the quality of your performance and the year of service will matter if you wanted to apply for that certain position. In some organization, recognition are done by peers, for example, choosing the People Choice Award or the Best Employee of the Month. So this informal recognition, or also called social recognition, can be a tremendous factor in employees' motivation. The social recognition consists of personal attention, signs of approval such as smiles and head nods, and expression of appreciation. Another incentive is travel. Many organizations provides their employees with the best performance, free travel, rather than giving a financial incentive. There are many benefits of incentive travel, but one of the most strongest benefits it has over cash incentives is that it provides a long-lasting memories, builds relationship, and broadens horizon that is very difficult to remove from a person. So these benefits go a long way in supporting the findings of research carried out by the Travel Society for Incentive Travel Excellence, which states that 99% of incentive travel programs are very effective in achieving important long-term objectives. So now, let's talk about individual versus group incentives. Now let's talk about individual incentive plan. Under individual incentive plan, individual employees is paid incentive on the basis of individual performance or output. The employers are liable to pay incentive to those employees who are producing more than the standard output. Individual incentive plans can be either time-based or production-based. There are 3 problems with individual incentive plan. So the first one is the difficulty in measuring individuals' performance. So it is the problem of the organization or the company on how to determine if who is the best employee and who is the one that deserves the incentive. Number 2, it can foster competition among employees because it is a performance-based incentive. So the employees are competing with each other in order to be the best employee and to receive that incentive. And with that, it can break or have a tension with the relationship of the employees at work. And number 3, for the incentive plan to effectively motivate employees, it is essential that employees understand the incentive system. So in order for this incentive plan to be effective in motivating the employees to do better, one of the first thing to do is let the employees understand well the incentive system. So there are 2 main common individual incentive plan. The first one is pay for performance, or the EAR, earning at risk plan. So this pays the employees according to how much they individually produced. Simple pay for performance that we all know is the commission, or being paid for each unit sold, and piecework, being paid for each unit of something produced. The second individual incentive is the merit pay. Merit pay system base their incentives on performance appraisal score rather than on performance measures as sales and productivity. So unlike the first individual incentive plan, the pay for performance, so for example, the commission. So the more product you can produce, the more incentive you can have. But in a merit pay, it is based on the appraisal score, or it pay employee if the employees hit the target or perform their jobs effectively according to a measurable criteria over a predetermined period of time. Now let's talk about the group incentives plan. The idea behind the group-based or organization-based incentive plan is to get employees to participate in the success or failure of the organization. Rather than encouraging individual competition, these plans reward employees for reaching group goal. So unlike the individual incentive plan, one of its disadvantages is that it can cause tension or competition towards the employees. But the group incentive plan is not. It encourages the employees to work together in order to achieve the organization goal. But the problem with the group incentive plans are that they encourage social loafing and get complicated, that they become difficult to explain to the employees. In social psychology, social loafing is the phenomenon in which a person is exerting less effort in achieving goals when they are in group than when they are alone. This is one of the main reasons why groups are less productive than the combined performance of their members working individually. Because maybe when we are in the group, we depend on other person and we sit back because we know that other persons would do, and we will depend on that. We will not give our best because we know that even though we don't put much effort, many of the team members will help us and will do that part. Rather than when we do things alone, we know that no one will gonna help us, no one will gonna do this thing. So we exert much effort, or we exert our best in order to reach that goal. Now let's talk about profit sharing. Profit sharing was developed in the United States by Albert Gallatin way back in 1974. Profit sharing programs provide employees with a percentage of profits above a certain amount. For example, in addition to their base salary, employees might receive 50% of the profits a company makes above 6%. The profits to be shared can be paid directly to employees as a bonus or cash plans, or placed into the employee's retirement plan. Now let's talk about gain sharing. Gain sharing is used by about 11% of organizations. It is according to Mercer Consulting 2005. Gain sharing ties group-wide financial incentive to improvements or gains in organizational performance. Gain sharing is best described as a system of management in which an organization seeks higher level of performance through the involvement and participation of its people. As performance improves, employees share financially in the gain. Gain sharing programs consist of three important elements. The first one is a cooperative, participative management philosophy. The second one, incentive based on improvement. And the third one is a group-based bonus formula. A typical gain-sharing program works as follows. First, the company monitors performance measures over some period of time to derive a baseline. Then, productivity goals above the baseline are set. and the employees are told that they will receive bonuses for each period that the goal is reached. To make goal setting more effective, constant feedback is provided to employees on how current performance is in relation to the goal. At the end of each reporting period, bonuses are paid on the basis of how well the group did. Now let's talk about stock options. With stock options, the employees are given the opportunity to purchase stock in the future, typically at the market price on the day the options were granted. Usually, stock vests over a certain period of time and must be exercised within a maximum time frame. The idea is that as the company does well, the value of its stocks increases, as does the employee's profit. So as the stocks increases, the profit of the employees also increases. For example of stock options, suppose AT&T stock is selling for $55 per share on June 1, and the company gives employees the option of purchasing the stock for $55 per share anytime in the next 10 years. 10 years later, the stock is worth $75 per share, and the employee can purchase the stock for $55 per share option priced. So there will be $20 per share profit for the employees. However, if the stock had fallen from $55 to $45, the employee would not exercise his options to purchase the stock of $55 per share. So this is an example of stock profit. The employee was given by the company AT&T an option to buy its shares for the next 10 years. So the price would be $55 per share because it is the price at the time that the offer was made. And in the next 10 years, if the share is worth $75 per share, the employee can still buy the share at the option price, the $55 per share. So the employee will have $20 profit per share. However, if the share becomes lower than $55 per share, then the employees cannot exercise their option in buying the share. So thank you so much, everyone. So that is the end of my discussion, and I hope you learned from my discussion. Thank you so much.
Good day. I'm gonna continue the reporting. I am Shara Laguros, and now I'm gonna tackle about expectancy theory. So, what is expectancy theory? Expectancy theory is an influential theory of worker motivation that suggests that behavior is motivated by anticipated results of consequences. It was initially put forward by Victor Vroom at the Yale School of Management, wherein he proposed that a person decides to behave in a certain way based on the expected result of the chosen behavior. For example, people will be willing to work harder if they think that the extra effort will be rewarded. So, in essence, individuals make choices based on estimates of how well the expected results of a given behavior are going to match up with or eventually lead to the desired results. This process begins in childhood and continues throughout a person's life. So, expectancy theory has three components: expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. Expectancy. Expectancy is the perceived relationship between the amount of effort an employee puts in and the resulting outcome. Instrumentality is the extent to which the outcome of a worker's performance, if noticed, results in a particular consequence. And valence is the extent to which an employee values a particular consequence. So, to understand or predict an employee's level of motivation, these three components are used in the formula. Motivation is the product of expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. Thus, all possible outcomes of a behavior are determined. The valence of each is multiplied by the probability that it occurs at a particular performance level, and then the sum of these products is multiplied by the expectancy of an employee putting in the effort to attain the necessary level of performance. As can be seen from this formula, the higher the score of each component, the greater the employee's motivation. So, to expand this, let us examine each component in more detail. So, in terms of expectancy, if an employee believes that no matter how hard he works, he will never reach the necessary level of performance, then his motivation will probably be low. Wala, uy, bisag unsa akong buhaton. Dili jud ako ma-reach ni nga performance. So, ang employee di na siya ma-motivate nga buhatonon. Kay kabalo naman siya. I mean, nag-expect naman siya nga dili niya ma-reach na nga level of performance. So, for instrumentality, the employee will be motivated only if his behavior results in some specific consequence. That is, if the employee works extra hours, he expects to be more rewarded. Or if he is inexcusably absent from work, he expects to be punished. Sige, ko, OT, mo OT kay, mo overtime kay, na may sweldo, so ganahan ka mo overtime. Kay, daghang overtime, daghang sweldo. Wherein, kung dili ka mo absent ka, mo absent ka ron. Siyempre, unsa may expect mo kung absent ka? Kung muawol ka, mapunish ka. Or kung absent ka, wala ka sweldo ng adlaw. And the third component, valence, if an employee is rewarded, the reward must be something he values. If good performance is rewarded by an award, then the employee will be motivated only if he values awards. So, pwede ma-example na to ani kay kana sigurong na assessment mahitabo every month, no? Sa kanang, for example, sa company. Si Shara ang pinaka daghang customer karon nga month. Ngani. So, naay rewards. Ang reward nga gihatag ni Shara kay kanang ma-value nila, hala. Ang reward karon kay kuan na ba mug? Ang mug, nakoy collection of mug ingon si Shara. So, valuable niya ng award. Ma-motivate ta po siya kay sa sunod nga month po mug na daw po ang i-award. So, okay na po siya, ma-motivate siya kay valuable ang mug para niya. It is important to understand that expectancy theory can run around if managers interpret it too simplistically. It entails more than just the assumption that people will work harder if they think the effort will be rewarded. The rewards need to be meaningful and take valence into account. Expectancy theory, when properly followed, can help managers understand how individuals are motivated to choose among various behavioral alternatives. To enhance the connection between performance and outcomes, managers should use systems that tie rewards very closely to performance. They can also use training to help employees improve their abilities and believe that added effort will, in fact, lead to better performance. Although expectancy theory is an interesting and useful method of predicting and increasing employee motivation, some researchers have criticized it. And the major criticism involves the components equation. So ang equation, no, kay motivation is the product of expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. As it is now written, all of the components are multiplied. So, some researchers have suggested that perhaps the addition of some components would be more appropriate than their multiplication. This is because when the components are multiplied, a zero in any component results in a prediction of zero motivation, even when ratings in the other components are high. So, syempre, no? Kaya motivation is product man kung ang isa sa expectancy, instrumentality, or valence kay zero, automatic na nga ma-zero ang motivation dyan. Ma-zero na ang product because any number multiplied to zero is equal to zero. So, zero, kung zero ang product, zero ang motivation. Medyo okay po ang criticism. So, the second criticism involves the values assigned to each component. So, ang value sa expectancy, instrumentality, o valence. Research has indicated that even though valence and instrumentality can be reliably measured, the theory is most predictive when people behave rationally, which they often not do, and have an internal locus of control, which may not be always the case. Despite problems with the equation, however, the theory is still one of the most useful for predicting employee behavior. Rewards versus punishment. So we all know, no? Familiar na kayo unsa ng reward, unsa ng punishment. So, rather than rewarding desired behaviors, we can change employee performance by punishing undesired behaviors. So, no to rewarding desired behaviors, yes to punishing undesired behaviors. That is, instead of rewarding employees who do not miss work, we punish those who do. So, proponents of using punishment to change employee behavior argue that if applied properly, punishment not only reduces undesired behaviors in a particular employee, but also sets an example for other employees. So, imuhang classmate, imuhang workmate nga wala ni trabaho or naa siya gibuhat nga dili mao nya nakita nakuhibawaan ninyo nga gipunish siya. So, makuan na sa imuhang una-una nga, okay, dili na nako buhaton kay kung buhaton na nako mao na punishment. However, opponents of punishment argue that punishment changes behavior only in the short run. It does not teach an employee proper behaviors and causes resentment. For punishment to be effective, an employee must understand why he is being punished and be shown alternative ways of behaving that will result in some type of desired reinforcement. The punishment must also fit the crime in that too severe punishment will cause resentment and too lenient punishment will not motivate a change in behavior. As one would imagine, punishment should usually be done in private rather than in front of other employees. This is true, no? Kay kung mapunish ka sa butang nga mo ni imong gibuhat, unya ang punishment nimo kay kani. So makuha siya ka nga, grabe ha mas akong punishment ka, murag dili man kaayo. bugat ang akong nabuhat. Or kung bugat imong nabuhat, unya, ang punishment nimo is dili kayo grabe. Okay, buhaton pa to na ako balik, uy. Kay ingani raman di ay. Sayo naman di ang punishment. So, mag-matter jud siya. And for punishment usually be done in private rather than in front of other employees. So, I think professionalism jud no makita jud na to ani professionals pa ya. So, it's better to do it in private. Kay dili man sad mas mubugat ang punishment anang employee kung imo na siyang like kasab-an i-punish nimo atubangan sa iyang mga kauban nga employees. So, better do it in private na lang. Are rewards and resources given equitably? So, another factor related to motivation and job satisfaction is the extent to which employees perceive that they are being treated fairly. The first theory on this topic is equity theory. So, equity theory is based on the premise that our levels of motivation and job satisfaction are related to how fairly we believe we are treated in comparison with others. If we believe we are treated unfairly, we attempt to change our beliefs or behaviors until the situation appears to be fair. So basically, it is a theory of motivation that suggests that employee motivation at work is driven largely by their sense of fairness. There are three components involved in this perception of fairness: inputs, outputs, and input-output ratio. So, inputs are those personal elements that we put into our jobs. Obvious elements are time, effort, education, and experience. Less obvious elements include distance driven to work. Outputs are those elements that we receive from our jobs. A list of obvious outputs includes pay, benefits, challenge, and responsibility. Less obvious benefits such as friends because, we can gain friends through work. And according to the theory, employees subconsciously list all their outputs and inputs and then compute an input-output ratio by dividing output value by input value. By itself, this ratio is not especially useful, but employees then compute it because they want to compare it with their previous work experiences. If employees perceive that the ratio of inputs to outcome is not equitable with what of their peers, then they may become demotivated and dissatisfied with their job. When an employee's inputs are greater than his outputs, he may work less hard, become more selfish, or has lower job satisfaction. But when an employee's outputs are greater than his inputs, he is likely to be persuaded by his underpaid peers, he works harder, and he becomes more team-oriented. Are other employees motivated? So, employees observe the levels of motivation and satisfaction of other employees and then model those levels. Thus, if an organization's older employees work hard and talk positively about their jobs and their employer, new employees will model this behavior and be both productive and satisfied. The reverse is also true. If veteran employees work slowly and complain about their jobs, so too will new employees. So kung bago ka na nga company, and then nabantayan nimo sa mga daan na like mga seniors nimo, kapuya, hanap po ni trabaho. Kapuya, hanap po ni Tika mga negative nga may paingon. So makakuha ng ko. Lo, kapuya dahil po mo trabaho ani uy. Kapuya man dahil ani. So, ma-influensyahan ka. So, integration of motivation theories. As shown in the figure, people come to a job with a predisposition toward motivation. That is, some people, such as those with high self-esteem, are generally more motivated than others. So, let's review what we have learned in this chapter. So, from the discrepancy and needs theories, we will be motivated in our jobs if the job itself and the organization meet our expectations and values and satisfies our needs. So kung wala na meet ang imong expectation sa low imong motivation. So from goal setting theory, we will find that employees who have understand and agree to goals will be more motivated than those without goals or with unclear goals. So, from expectancy theory and goal-setting theory, we know that the goals must be challenging but reasonable. From operant learning and expectancy theories, it is clear that extrinsically motivated people will be more motivated if behavior results in a reward. From these same two theories plus discrepancy theory, the needs theories, and the Premack principle, we know that the rewards must have value to the employees to be motivating because different people value different rewards. Care must be taken to ensure that a variety of rewards are available. So, from equity theory, we know that rewards that are valued will be motivating only if they are given in an equitable way. As discussed previously in this chapter, perceptions of equity are as important as the reality of equity. So for social learning theory, it tells us that if other employees are motivated, kung motivated ang uban, there is an increased probability that we will model their behavior and be motivated. The results of these factors are summed to indicate an employee's current level of motivation. As conditions change, so will the motivation level. Ethics of motivation strategies. As you read this chapter, organizations come up with creative ways to try to motivate employees to work harder, work safer, or to cut costs. But the question is, should there be any limits on the type of motivator that is used? Or is it okay to use any motivational strategy just as long as it has the desired results? So here is an example situation. In 2001, a Hooters chain in Panama City Beach, Florida, came up with the idea of having a beer selling contest to motivate its servers to sell as much beer as possible in the month of April. The top-selling waitress from each Hooters in the area had her name entered into a drawing. The waitress whose name was drawn would win the prize. Based on what the managers at each Hooters told their staff, the competing waitresses thought they would be winning a new Toyota automobile. The competition was a success. Most of the Hooters in the area seemed to have increased their sales of beer. Jody Berry was the winning waitress. On the day she was told she was the winner, she was blindfolded and led to the restaurant parking lot. However, instead of receiving a new Toyota car, she was presented with a Star Wars toy Yoda doll. Inside the restaurant, the manager and the other staffs were laughing. Miss Berry didn't think it was so funny. She worked hard to win this contest. Her motivation level was high because of the thought of winning a Toyota, not a toy Yoda. So, she sued Gulf Coast Wings Incorporated, owners of the restaurant, alleging breach of contract and fraudulent misrepresentation. She was seeking as compensation the cost of a new Toyota car. The case was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. So, employees are the most valuable asset any company has. They are responsible for undertaking daily activities which assist organizations to achieve their goals. So, in order to enable workers to give the best, employers need to identify means of motivating their workers. While motivation is critical, organizations should be careful to avoid negative implications associated with various forms of motivation. The actions toward Miss Berry were unethical. It was unethical for the hotel to promise the waitress a Toyota car, then instead give her a Star Wars toy Yoda doll. The waitress put in extra effort since she wanted to get a car. The hotel had not informed her that eventually they will offer a toy. Furthermore, presenting a toy to the waitress indicated that the hotel did not value her services. The move showed that the waitress was simply a means to an end for the hotel. It was hence unethical for Hooters to take for granted the services of the waitress.